I used to work the closing shift at a small convenience store off a quiet road, the kind of place where the same 5 customers showed up every night, and the security cameras were older than the snacks on aisle 3. There were 8 cameras total, 4 inside, 4 outside. Most nights, the footage was so predictable, I stopped really watching it. Cars pulling in, people grabbing drinks, the occasional raccoon trying to break into the dumpster. Nothing unusual, nothing dangerous, just routine. That's probably why I didn't notice the first night something was wrong. Not until it was already too late. It was around 1:30 a.m. when I saw movement on camera 6, the one above the back lot. A figure walked into view from the far corner of the lot where the lights barely reached. Hood up, hands in pockets, head down. They didn't come inside. They didn't go toward the dumpsters. They just stood there, body half hidden in the shadow between the streetlight and the building. They weren't doing anything, just staring, straight at the camera. I told myself it was nothing. Maybe someone waiting for a ride. Maybe someone on a call. Maybe just some wandering night owl. I kept working. 10 minutes later, I glanced at the monitors again. The figure hadn't moved, not an inch. Same posture, same angle, same unsettling stillness. I stepped out from behind the counter and locked the front door early. It wasn't store policy, but no one else was coming at that hour, and the quiet in the building suddenly felt too loud. I checked the lot again. The figure was gone. I exhaled, too relieved. I swept, stocked shelves, restocked the drinks. I made it almost 30 minutes without thinking about the camera. When I finally checked again, the figure was back. Only this time, closer, and standing directly beneath the camera. Head tilted straight up, face still hidden by the shadow of the hood, but body angled in a way that felt intentional, as if they wanted me to know they'd moved without being seen moving. My stomach dropped. I grabbed the phone to call the non-emergency line, but before I could dial, the figure lifted an arm and pointed right at camera 2, the one inside, aimed at the counter where I was standing. I froze. Slowly, I lowered the phone. The hand dropped back to their side. They kept staring upward at the camera, like they were staring at me through it. I watched them on the screen for at least a full minute. Then, without sound or warning, they stepped back into the dark and vanished again. I went into the back room and locked that door too. I knew the building was secure. I checked everything twice, but the cameras made me feel exposed, not protected. Every time something passed in front of a lens, it felt like I was the one being watched instead of the store. I sat in the back room, listening to the hum of the refrigerators, waiting for the clock to hit 3 a.m. so I could close without getting fired. I tried not to look at the monitor, failed. When I finally glanced, the figure was there again, closer. Right up against the glass of the back door, one hand resting lightly on the metal frame. They weren't trying to get in, they were waiting, watching the camera, watching me watch them. I reached for the lights and shut them off. Maybe darkness would make it harder for them to see me. Maybe it was stupid. The moment the lights went off, my monitors flickered. One by one, each camera cutting from clear footage to static for a split second before returning. Each flicker made my pulse spike. I stared at the back door feed, waiting for the figure to fade into static too. When the picture snapped back the 4th time, the figure was gone again. I didn't move. I didn't even breathe. I stared at that screen for what felt like hours. Just when I began to think maybe they'd finally left, the monitor for camera 3 inside the store flickered. Then camera 4. Then camera 2, right at the counter. Someone walked between the aisles, not fast, not aggressive, just walking, browsing. But the front door was still locked. I checked the latch twice to be sure. The motion made no sound. The steps in the footage didn't sync with any noise in the building. The figure drifted between shelves, their head turning slowly toward each camera as if mapping where they all were. They paused at the middle aisle, turned toward camera 2, tilted their head, same angle, same unnatural slow rotation. My stomach twisted. Before I could even process what I was seeing, the picture flickered again. When it snapped back, the figure stood behind the counter, right where I'd been standing earlier. I pressed my back against the office door, struggling to breathe. I watched them lean across the register, pressing a hand against the counter like they were testing its weight. Then they lifted their other hand and pointed at the office door camera, the one showing me. I swallowed hard. The room felt smaller. My hands shook so badly I nearly dropped the remote. I blinked once, just once. When my eyes opened, the monitor showed nothing. Empty store, empty counter, empty aisles. I stayed in that back room until sunrise, long after my shift ended. When my replacement finally banged on the outside door, I nearly collapsed when I heard their voice. I didn't tell them anything, didn't explain why the store lights were off or why my hands were trembling. I just walked out into daylight and tried to breathe normally again. I quit 2 days later, never went back. The footage from that night was wiped automatically by the system a week later, store policy. I tried not to think about that, tried not to imagine someone watching me watch them, slipping between cameras like they already knew the blind spots better than I ever would. Even now, whenever I pass a store late at night, I can't help glancing at the cameras, not to see if someone's watching the store, but to see if someone's watching me. Because sometimes, just before the feed switches angles, I swear I see a hooded figure looking up, head tilted, waiting for me to look back. I took a job as the overnight monitor for a private apartment complex, mostly because it paid better than anything else that didn't require dealing with drunk customers or cleaning bathrooms. The building wasn't fancy, but it wasn't trash either. 3 floors, long hallways, 1 elevator that always smelled faintly of old carpet, and a security room tucked beside the laundry machines where my desk sat, surrounded by a wall of aging monitors. 32 cameras covered the place. Hallways, corners, stairwells, entrances, the parking lot, even the bike storage cage. Most nights were boring. Residents came home, disappeared into their apartments, and the halls went dead silent. Sometimes I'd see someone take their dog out or someone stumbling in after drinking too much, but nothing dangerous, nothing even interesting. Until one night, around 2:40 a.m., camera 17 flickered. That camera faced the long hallway on the 2nd floor, the one with the motion-activated lights. Normally it stayed dark until someone walked through, but when the feed flickered, the lights in the hallway turned on even though no one had triggered them. The hall was empty. No shadows, no movement, no shift in air. Just the lights clicking on by themselves. I leaned close to the monitor, waiting to see if a bug flew past the motion sensor or someone emerged from the elevator. Nobody did. But the light stayed on. At first I chalked it up to wiring issues. The building was old enough that weird glitches happened. But then camera 18, the one at the opposite end of the same hallway, clicked on too. No figure, no motion, just lights activating as if someone invisible was walking down the hall. A chill crept down my spine. I watched carefully, switching feeds back and forth. Then camera 17 flickered again. A shadow moved. Not a clear figure, just a distortion in the lights, like someone tall walked underneath the bulb and the sensor adjusted. But the shape was wrong. Too long, too stretched, and it didn't match any human outline I'd ever seen. I rubbed my eyes, thinking maybe I'd been staring too long. When I opened them, the hallway was empty again, but the light at the far end wasn't. It had turned off. Then the next one turned off, and the next. Each light clicked dark one by one, moving toward the camera, like something was walking away from it. I swallowed hard, sat back, and flipped through all the feeds. Stairwells, empty. Elevator, empty. Lobby, empty. Parking lot, 1 parked car. Everything normal except that hallway. The lights finished turning off and the hall went dark completely. I took a breath and tried to shake off the unease. I was halfway through convincing myself it was a sensor malfunction when camera 22, the stairwell feed, lit up bright. A person was standing on the landing, hood up, hands hanging loosely at their sides. They weren't moving, just staring straight into the camera. I shifted closer to the screen. I couldn't see their face, just shadow under the hood. Their posture was stiff, unnatural, like their joints were locked. I checked the timestamp, 2:48 a.m. I hit the microphone button that let me talk through the stairwell speaker. Stairwell is for emergencies only. Please use the elevator. The figure didn't react. Didn't flinch. Just stared. I buttoned the mic again. You need to leave that area. No movement, no response. I watched them in silence, feeling my pulse under my jaw. After nearly 30 seconds, the person turned, not walking down the stairs, not walking up them, just stepping sideways into the blind spot under the camera. One step, gone. The stairwell lights stayed on. I switched to the hallway camera on that floor and scanned for movement. Nothing. I checked the lobby feed. Nothing. Checked the elevators. They were still on the first floor. I flipped back to camera 22 to confirm they were gone. The moment the feed loaded, they were back, standing one step closer. Same posture, same angle, same stare. I didn't blink. I couldn't. I pressed the mic again, but my throat closed. I couldn't get anything out. The figure tilted their head slightly, barely, enough to signal they knew I was watching them. And then the stairwell lights behind them turned off, all at once, leaving them lit only by the emergency bulb overhead, their shadow stretching unnaturally long across the concrete. The figure took one slow step toward the camera, then another. The emergency bulb flickered, once, twice, and when it steadied again, the person was gone. No movement, no blur, just vanished between frames. I scanned the entire building again, hitting every camera feed as fast as I could. Nothing. Not in the halls. Not in the lots. Not at any door. I took a breath, telling myself maybe they'd slipped out. Maybe they'd been messing around and left through a blind spot. For 10 minutes, nothing happened. 10 quiet, heavy minutes. Then camera 5, the one facing the security office door, switched on. Someone was standing right outside. Hood up. Head tilted the same exact way. They didn't knock, didn't move, didn't try the door, just stood there, staring into the small glass window, staring directly into the camera, staring at me. My breath caught. I muted all sounds and sat perfectly still, afraid any movement would give them something to react to. The person stood there for so long, my eyes burned from forgetting to blink. Then, slowly, they raised a hand, not to knock, not to wave, but to press their palm flat against the glass of the security office door, the exact spot where the camera filmed. I reached for the phone with shaking fingers, but before I could dial, the lights in the hallway outside the office shut off. Total darkness swallowed the figure except for the faint outline of their hand on the glass. Then even that slipped away as they pulled it back. A second later, the hallway lights flickered back on. The area was empty. They were gone. Completely gone. I didn't leave that office until the sun came up and the day shift guard knocked on the door. They asked why I looked like hell. I didn't answer. I couldn't. I quit that afternoon. I told myself I'd never think about the footage again. But every time I pass a security camera, even in a store, in a parking garage, in an elevator, I feel watched, not by the camera, but by something on the other side of it. Something patient. Something that remembers where the blind spots are. I used to help out at a small community rec center on the edge of town, mostly handling the closing duties. The building was old, full of long hallways, echoing locker rooms and security cameras that only half worked, but were too expensive for the place to replace. My job was simple: make sure everyone left by 10 p.m., lock up the back doors, check the pool room, check the gym, turn off lights, and watch the cameras until 11 in case someone tried sneaking back in. Most nights were so quiet I could hear the vending machine humming in the lobby, but one night, everything felt wrong before anything actually happened. It was around 9:45 when I checked the camera feeds while waiting for the last few people to leave. Camera 12, the hallway by the storage room, flickered. At first it looked like a glitch, a long streak of static. Then it snapped back, showing the hallway empty. I shrugged it off. The wiring in that wing was awful. 5 minutes later, the building was empty. I locked the main doors, did a sweep through the bathrooms and locker rooms, and settled into the office chair with the monitor wall glowing in front of me. Cameras 1 through 11, Nothing. Camera 12 flickered again. Only this time someone was standing in the hallway. A person in dark clothes, hood up, body turned toward the camera with a stillness that didn't look casual. I leaned closer. That hallway was locked behind 2 doors at night. No one should have been able to get back there. I pressed the speaker button for the hallway intercom. "Building's closed. You're not supposed to be back there." The figure didn't move, didn't even shift, just stood there like they were carved out of shadow. I watched them for several seconds before the lights in the hallway clicked off. All at once. The monitor went nearly black except for the faint outlines from the emergency bulb near the door. The figure stepped backward into the darkness until only the edge of their hood was visible. Then, nothing. When the lights popped back on 3 seconds later, the hallway was empty again. I ran a quick check of the building. First floor, second floor, locker rooms, lobby. Nothing. Every door still locked. Every room empty. I returned to the office, trying to convince myself the figure had been leftover footage from earlier, some weird system delay, but deep down, my gut already knew that was a lie. At 10:32, camera 8, the gym, lit up. Movement. Someone walked across the far end, slow and deliberate. I froze. I just checked that room. It had been empty. The figure walked beneath the basketball hoop, head tilted toward the floor. Their steps didn't echo. They didn't make a sound. They reached the middle of the court, stopped, then turned their head upward toward the nearest camera. The posture was identical to the figure from camera 12. Same height, same shape, same unnerving stillness. I pressed the intercom again, voice tight. "You need to leave. Right now." Instead of reacting, the figure lifted an arm slowly and pointed toward the hallway door on the right side of the gym. The same hallway where camera 12 had glitched. The lights in the gym shut off. When they came back on half a second later, the figure was gone. I didn't breathe for at least 10 seconds. Then I scanned every camera again, switching from feed to feed with trembling fingers. Everything empty, everything quiet. Until camera 14, the pool, someone was standing on the edge of the water, motionless, facing the camera. Their reflection warped on the surface of the pool, stretching their shape in a way that made my stomach twist. The intercom for the pool didn't work. It had been broken for months. I could only watch as the figure crouched down slowly, hand hovering just above the water like they were testing the temperature. Then, without any splash, they disappeared below the surface. The water never rippled, not once. I pushed back from the monitor. Something in me screamed to leave the office, leave the building, leave everything. But the office door suddenly clicked, locked, on its own. I hadn't touched anything. I rushed to it anyway, jiggling the handle, but it wouldn't budge. I turned back to the monitors. Camera 1, the lobby, empty. Camera 2, the hallway, empty. Camera 3, the door by the vending machine, empty. Camera 4, the locker rooms, empty. Camera 5, the back exit, empty. Camera 6, the stairwell. Someone was standing at the bottom of the stairs, not moving, looking up into the camera. The hood, the stillness, the exact same person as before. I watched the feed, heart pounding. The figure didn't walk up the stairs, didn't step forward. They just moved closer in a way that felt wrong, like the frames were skipping. 1 second at the bottom step, the next halfway up, the next at the top landing. Their head tilted slightly to one side, like listening to something behind me. I swallowed hard and slowly turned my head toward the office door window. It was frosted glass. Blurry shapes, nothing distinct. But I could see movement behind it, slow, shifting. I turned back to the monitor. The stairwell camera was now empty. I heard something at the door. Not knocking, not trying to force it open, just brushing, like someone dragging fingertips lightly across the metal. The ceiling light flickered. Once, twice. The monitor scrambled, static, black. Then one feed came back. Camera 5, the back exit door. A hand pressed against the glass. Just a hand, pale, still. Then another feed returned. Camera 3, the hallway by the vending machine. The hooded figure walked straight down the center of the hall, posture rigid, steps silent. The vending machine light flickered as they passed it. One by one, the remaining cameras clicked back online. The figure was in every feed, walking toward every camera at once, down the hall, through the lobby, by the locker rooms, toward the pool room, toward the gym, toward the stairwell, toward the office. The office camera came back last. The figure stood right outside the door window, head tilted, watching me. My legs gave out and I backed into the desk, eyes locked on the monitor as the person leaned closer to the glass. Right when their head touched the window, every light in the building shut off. Total blackout. Only the faint glow of the monitors lit the room, flickering rapidly. When the lights finally snapped back on 30 seconds later, the hallway outside was empty. The handprint on the glass was gone. I unlocked the door, ran outside, and didn't look back. I quit the next morning, told them the wiring was too unreliable for me to feel safe. They didn't argue, but every time I drive past the building, the hair on my arm stands up, because there's a camera on the corner of the roof facing the parking lot, and sometimes, when I look up, I swear the feed blinks like someone's switching cameras behind the glass.